what is symboling in institutional economics? And the basic idea is that most things that we think of as symbols, which includes like religious symbols, like the poison symbol, it includes traffic lights and company logos. Most of those are actually sort of references to institutional things that somebody would like to be implemented sort of on people's hearts as part of how institutions work. And when I talk about institutions, the symbol I use is the umbrella, because you have meta institutions sort of at a high level, and you have nested institutions, which are umbrellas in the way I represent it, underneath those. And then you have organizations, each with their own set of institutional rules, roles, and expectations. And that's an institution. Like, what is the definition of an institution? It is a set of rules, roles, expectations, and enforcement mechanisms that structure human relationship. And that includes people's habits, their practices, their values, because of course their values are going to determine which rules they socially enforce in a group. And if you think about all of the different levels of institution, like what are the expectations in broader society? What are expectations in your workplace? What are the social rules enforced in your little social circle? What about the rules and roles within your family? Like there's many different institutions people step into and out of on a daily basis. And that's just a lot of structure to remember. It's a lot of structure to sort of fit yourself into. And the human brain and spirit and memory cannot contain that much information. So actually, most of the way institutions are enforced are through sort of habit and through intuition. It's like people couldn't necessarily spell out what are the social rules that are taboo or not taboo or expected, and you'll get an angry look if you don't fulfill this expectation based on your role in the family. Most of that stuff is not things we could actually write down. Like if you ask us to write down all of those social expectations, most people would not be able to do it, even if they actually act on those rules and roles and expectations on a daily basis. Most of it is invisible, even to the human brain. It's sort of written on the human heart, the human nervous system, and that's just how things operate. And that's where symbols come in. Symbols represent values or habits or practices in communities you belong to, where people in the community have sort of agreed, yeah, we want to live out these values. It would be great if we live out these values. But it's kind of hard to remember in the moment when we're going about our day that we need to zoom back and think of things from a bigger perspective. So say like a religious symbol is a reminder that maybe you have a bracelet and it's got that religious symbol, and anytime you're trying to make a decision or you're about to do something and you look down at your bracelet, it's like, oh, wait a second. I have a value that says I'm not going to do this thing. And same with traffic lights. Traffic lights obviously are very much a set of rules and expectations that you react to and respond to those rules automatically based on your habits. But having that symbol stops it from being like every time you come to the crossroad, you have to figure out whose turn is it, what's the rule we have to go with now. It's like, no, the rules are set up in a way that's very clear for you to interact with. And of course, the poison symbol, like, you know, oh yeah, if I don't follow that rule, I'm going to be in real trouble. So when I see a poison symbol on something, I should maybe store it someplace where the kids don't have access. I should maybe avoid that in the kitchen where I could accidentally spill some on the counter. So like, these are rules and rules that are oftentimes designed for human flourishing. Like somebody designed these institutions or thought of these institutions for good reasons. And if you bought into those reasons, you're happy with it. It's just helpful to have a symbol that makes adhering to those institutions less onerous. Now, how do company logos play in with this? And company logos kind of evoke certain feelings, certain expectations about like what will interacting with this product be like, what are the values upheld by people inside those companies. So inside companies, they're going to try to create a certain ethos, a certain experience for the customer, and you want that experience to be easily evoked. You don't want people to like walk into a store and be like, what's the deal with this kind of product? So logos very much do fit in with the institutional framework. Now, of course, institutions evolve. So many of the institutions that are sort of our natural habits and practices on a daily basis, nobody sat down and decided this is how this institution should be, this would work best. For many of the institutions that we adhere to on a regular basis, it kind of emerged naturally, where maybe people are gossiping around the water cooler. It's really annoying when that person does that thing. And then the gossip kind of spreads and everybody's like, woo, I guess it's a rule in this company that you don't do that thing. And of course, the same thing can happen on a broader societal level, especially with social media, where if everybody's talking about how bad this is, then that can create a natural institution, whether good or bad, that people are like, okay, we don't do that, we don't do that. And of course, that can be good, that can be bad. It can be democratically determined through this evolutionary process. It can be determined in a way that sort of favors existing power structures. There's all kinds of things going on when institutions evolve. But institutions are not necessarily all designed. In fact, probably most institutions you adhere to regularly were not explicitly designed. And to some degree, the same is true of symbols. Like somebody had to come up with a symbol. So that person who came up with it was probably very much in touch with an institution they hoped would evolve, or something that a value they hoped would spread through the population. But an example I might think of is like, I was a teenager in the 90s and there was like the loser symbol, like that's a symbol. And if somebody said something really stupid, you might do this. And of course it's kind of rude, but it was a symbol that was designed to enforce, like that symbol is an enforcement mechanism to enforce the social norms of that teenage social group or whatever. And my guess is the first person to use this symbol was not thinking, I should develop an institution to enforce my values. They were probably just like mad at somebody in their group and like they said, you're a loser, you have a big L on your head, and that they thought that was kind of clever, and then just somehow that picked up and that symbol spread from group to group because it really captured in a very short way, a quick way of enforcing social norms. Which gets at the notion that some symbols are really intuitive and they just feel good on sort of human nervous system, and those spread quickly. And then other times people will try to come up with a symbol and they'll be like, we need to enforce the 3 T's in our company to make sure that people are practicing good protocol when they do whatever. But the 3 T's just isn't very intuitive, and people are like, was it the 3 R's or the 3 S's, or was it 5 T's? And they were trying to come up with like maybe the 3 T's, like maybe this is the symbol, but it just doesn't really pick up because people just don't respond to it in a nervous system, habit, emotional way. And I do think we are going to need new symbols as we shift the economy towards something better. But those new symbols are going to have to be very in touch. Like the people who design those symbols will need to be artists who have really good intuition about the kinds of things the human spirit responds to. And ideally, they would have a really good understanding of what the population wants as its new institutions, so that it doesn't feel like people at the top imposing their values, which it oftentimes can with people who are designing new symbols and new institutions. It needs to be something that spreads naturally, that feels natural, that people are like, yes, that's a value I would love to uphold. That would be meaningful for me. And that symbol just kind of fits that spot that was already in my heart for that thing.